The royal decree came at midnight, sealed in blood and stamped with betrayal. Luna Octavia held her newborn daughter against her chest as the parchment burned in the hearth behind her, its words already seared into her memory. By order of the High Council and under pack law, any child born of forbidden bloodline shall be removed from succession and its mother exiled beyond the mountain pass. Refusal constitutes treason. Compliance is mandatory within the hour. She had 60 minutes before they came for her child. Before they ripped Cassia from her arms and declared her daughter's existence illegal. Before the blood oath she'd sworn to her mate, Marcus Aurelius, became worthless ash scattered across marble floors. Tell me the city you're watching from so I can send you a hug. Because what happens next, what Luna does in the darkness of that tower room while rogues gather at the castle gates, will break you before it rebuilds you. The forbidden bloodline wasn't Luna's fault. She was born beneath a half-moon to a mother who died whispering prophecies, and her father was a wolf who'd made it outside his rank, outside his station, outside every law the pack elders had carved into stone 300 years prior. Luna herself was an accident of fate, a child who should never have survived infancy, yet here she stood at 23, alive, breathing, and holding another impossibility in her arms. Ursha, named for the cinnamon-scented bark that grew wild in the eastern forests. Born just 3 hours ago with Luna's dark hair and Marcus's golden eyes. Eyes that marked her as heir to the throne, even though pack law said she couldn't be. Even though the council had already decided her fate before she'd drawn her first breath. Marcus was in the council chamber now, fighting for them both. Luna could hear his voice echoing up through the stone corridors, raw with desperation. She's my daughter, my blood, my heir. You cannot. We can. That was Consul Tiberius, ancient and unmovable as the mountains themselves. The blood oath you swore to this pack supersedes any personal bond. Luna Octavia was forbidden from bearing your children. You knew this when you claimed her as mate. You knew this when you defied us. I claimed her because she's mine. She was never yours to claim. Luna pressed her forehead against Cassia's, breathing in that new soul scent, memorizing it. The baby's tiny fist curled around her finger with surprising strength. Already fighting. Already refusing to let go. The rogues hit the eastern gate 17 minutes later. Luna heard the explosion first. A thundercrack that shook dust from the ceiling beams and sent the candles flickering wild shadows across stone walls. Then came the screams. Guards shouting. Metal on metal. The distinctive snarl of wolves who'd abandoned their humanity and given themselves over to violence and rage. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. Someone on the council had arranged this. Someone wanted chaos, wanted blood, wanted an excuse to eliminate the problematic heir and her even more problematic mother while everyone was distracted. Luna moved fast. She wrapped Cassia in the softest blanket she could find, tied the baby against her chest with strips of torn bedsheet, then grabbed the climbing rope she'd hidden beneath the floorboards 3 months ago. She'd known this day would come. Had prepared for it the way prey prepares for predators, with careful planning and desperate hope. The window overlooked the inner courtyard where the ancient oak tree stood. 500 years old, its branches thick as a man's torso, its roots deep enough to drink from the underground river that fed the castle wells. Luna had climbed that oak as a child, knew every handhold, every branch strong enough to bear weight. She looped the rope around the stone column that supported the window frame, tested it twice, then swung her legs over the sill. Cassia made a small sound against her chest, not crying, just acknowledging the sudden change in position. Luna kissed her daughter's head and dropped into open air. The rope burned through her palms as she descended. Her shoulders screamed. Cassia's weight threw off her center of gravity, made every movement twice as difficult. But Luna had spent her whole life being twice as difficult, twice as determined, twice as unwilling to die quietly. She hit the ground running. The oak tree stood 30 paces across the courtyard, illuminated by torchlight and the orange glow of fires burning somewhere in the eastern wing. Luna could hear the rogues inside now, closer than before, their howls mixing with human screams. The castle guard was losing ground. She reached the oak and started climbing. Bark scraped her arms. Branches caught at her hair. Kasia squirmed once, twice, then settled into the rhythm of Luna's movement, as if she understood that survival required stillness. Luna climbed higher, into the dense canopy where shadows pooled thick enough to hide in. She found her spot 15 feet up, a branch junction where 3 massive limbs met to form a natural platform. She'd hidden supplies here weeks ago. Rope, a water skin, dried meat wrapped in waxed cloth, a knife with a blade thin enough to slip between ribs. She secured herself and Kasia with the rope, looping it around the branch and then around her waist, creating a safety line that would hold them both even if she lost consciousness. Then she waited. The rogues poured into the courtyard like plague rats fleeing a flood. 20, 30, 40 of them. Some in human form, some mid-shift, caught between shapes and sanity. They wore no colors, no sigils, no identifying marks, just weapons and fury. Luna recognized the organized chaos of it. This wasn't random violence. This was a distraction, an execution disguised as an attack. They spread through the courtyard, systematic and thorough, checking every shadow, every doorway, every possible hiding place. Luna pressed herself flat against the branch and pulled the hood of her cloak over Kasia's face. The baby's breathing was a whisper-soft rhythm against her ribs. Silent, trusting, completely dependent on Luna's ability to remain invisible. A rogue passed directly beneath the oak tree. He paused, tilted his head back, scented the air. Luna stopped breathing. Kasia didn't move. The rogue's gaze swept the branches once, twice, then moved on. He was looking for someone running, someone fighting. Not someone who'd climbed into the sky and become part of the tree itself. The attack intensified. Luna heard Marcus's roar from somewhere inside the castle. Fury and pain braided together. She wanted to go to him, wanted to fight beside him, but Kasia was warm and alive against her chest, and that was the only thing that mattered. The only thing she could protect. Hours bled together. Luna's legs cramped. Her arms went numb from holding Kasia in place. The rope bit into her waist, leaving marks she'd carry for weeks. But she didn't move. Didn't shift position. Didn't do anything that might draw attention to the oak tree that had become their sanctuary and their cage. The first hour was chaos. Rogues everywhere, fires burning, the clash of combat echoing off stone walls. The second hour brought reinforcements. Pack warriors from the northern territories, summoned by some messenger who'd escaped the initial assault. The tide began to turn. Rogues fell beneath coordinated attacks. Their howls shifted from aggressive to defensive to desperate. The third hour saw the last of them driven back or killed. The courtyard filled with pack warriors securing the perimeter, checking bodies, calling out orders. Luna watched them move beneath her hiding place, so close she could have reached down and touched their shoulders. But she remained frozen, because she didn't know who'd ordered this attack. Didn't know who she could trust. The fourth hour nearly broke her. Marcus emerged from the castle covered in blood. Not all of it his own. He moved with the heavy gait of someone who'd taken damage but refused to acknowledge it. His eyes swept the courtyard, systematic and desperate, looking for something specific. Looking for her. Luna wanted to call out. Wanted to drop from the tree and run to him. But Consul Tiberius emerged 3 steps behind Marcus, flanked by council guards, and Luna's voice died in her throat. "Your mate is dead, Marcus Aurelius." Tiberius spoke with the finality of a judge reading sentence. Luna, Octavia, and the child both. Their bodies were found in the eastern tower, throats torn out. The rogues got to them before we could intervene. Marcus stopped walking. His hands curled into fists so tight Luna could see white knuckles even from 15 feet above. "Show me the bodies. They've been burned already. Pack law demands. Show me the bodies." Marcus's voice had gone flat. Dangerous. The voice of an alpha who'd stopped asking and started commanding. Tiberius smiled. It was a small expression, subtle as poison. The attack was extensive. There wasn't enough left to show. Luna watched Marcus's face shatter and reform. Grief, rage, denial, acceptance. All of it cycling through in the space between heartbeats. He believed Tiberius. Why wouldn't he? The consul had no reason to lie about deaths that benefited the council's position. Except he was lying. Luna was alive. Cassia was alive. They were 15 feet above the conversation, wrapped in shadows and oak leaves, listening to themselves being erased from existence. Marcus dropped to his knees in the courtyard. The great Alpha, the heir to the throne, the wolf who defied pack law to claim a forbidden mate, reduced to broken prayer beneath an oak tree that held everything he thought he'd lost. Luna bit her tongue until she tasted blood. The only thing keeping her from screaming was Cassia's steady breathing against her chest. The reminder that silence meant survival. That revealing themselves now would mean both their deaths and Marcus's too. Tiberius had orchestrated this entire night. The decree, the attack, the convenient timing. He wouldn't hesitate to finish what he'd started. Dawn came slowly. Gray light bleeding across a courtyard painted in blood and ash. The pack warriors dispersed. Tiberius and his council returned to their chambers to discuss reconstruction and succession. Marcus remained on his knees for another hour before finally standing, turning, walking back toward the castle with the mechanical movements of someone whose soul had vacated their body. Luna waited until full daylight. Until the courtyard emptied completely. Until she was certain no eyes watched the ancient oak tree. Then she began the careful descent. Her legs barely held her when she touched ground. 4 hours in the tree had left her muscles locked, her joints screaming. Cassia woke hungry and angry. Her small cries muffled against Luna's shoulder. Luna fed her while pressed against the oak's massive trunk, eyes constantly scanning for threats. She couldn't stay. Couldn't go to Marcus. Not yet, not while Tiberius watched him, waited for him to lead them straight to his supposedly dead mate. She needed allies. Needed information. Needed to understand the full depth of the conspiracy before she could plan her next move. There was someone who might help. Someone who owed Luna a debt. Senator Cassius lived in the lower city, in a modest house that belied his considerable wealth and influence. He'd been in love with Luna's mother once, decades ago, before pack politics and bloodline restrictions had forced them apart. He'd told Luna once, drunk on wine and memory, that he'd help her if she ever needed it. That he'd pay the debt he owed to a woman he'd failed to save. Time to collect. Luna wrapped Cassia tighter against her chest and slipped through the morning shadows toward the servants' gate. It was always poorly guarded. The council believed threats came from outside the walls, not from ghosts walking out of their own funerals. She made it 3 steps before someone grabbed her arm. Luna spun, knife already in her hand, blade pressed against her attacker's throat before she recognized the face. Senator Claudius. Tiberius's youngest son. 26 years old with his father's calculating eyes and his mother's cruel mouth. He held both hands up in surrender, but his expression showed no fear. "I saw you climb down," he whispered. "Watched you for the last hour, debating whether to sound the alarm or help you run." Luna pressed the knife harder against his skin, drawing a thin line of blood. "Why would you help me?" "Because my father's planning to kill Marcus next." Claudius spoke fast, urgency making his words tumble together. "The attack last night was supposed to eliminate you and your daughter, yes, but it was also supposed to wound Marcus badly enough that removing him from succession would seem merciful. A war hero too damaged to rule. Except Marcus survived with barely a scratch, so now father needs a new plan." "Why tell me this?" "Because I'm tired of watching him destroy everything good in this pack for the sake of power." Claudius's jaw clenched. "My brother would have made a decent consul. Father had him exiled for disagreeing with the bloodline restrictions. My sister wanted to open trade with the eastern packs. Father had her mated off to a northern alpha 3 times her age who beats her when she speaks too loudly. I'm next in line for his position, which means I'm next in line to become everything I hate." Luna studied his face. Saw the truth there, raw and desperate. "What do you want from me?" "Help me stop him." You're supposed to be dead, which makes you the perfect weapon. Help me expose what he's done. Help me prove the attack was orchestrated from inside the council, and I'll help you protect your daughter. I'll help you save Marcus. It was too convenient. Too perfect. Luna's instincts screamed trap. But Kasia was hungry and cold, and Luna had been awake for 20 hours, and she was so tired of fighting alone. One wrong move, she said, pulling the knife back just enough to let him breathe, and I'll kill you before your guards can cross the courtyard. Claudius nodded. Wouldn't expect anything less. They moved through the lower city like smoke, there one moment, gone the next. Claudius knew every alley, every shortcut, every route that avoided the main streets and the pack patrols that walked them. He led Luna to a safe house near the river, a crumbling stone building that looked abandoned but had fresh locks on the doors and food in the pantry. You can stay here, he said, handing her the key. I'll bring supplies. Information. Whatever you need. I need to see Marcus. That's suicide. Father has him under surveillance. 12 guards on rotation, all loyal to the council. If you go near him, they'll know you're alive within minutes. Luna wanted to argue, but Kasia chose that moment to wail. A high, piercing cry that spoke of hunger and discomfort and all the needs Luna could barely meet. She sank onto the room's single bed and opened her shirt, letting her daughter nurse while exhaustion crashed over her in waves. Claudius looked away, giving them privacy. I'll return tonight with news. Rest while you can. He left. Luna locked the door behind him, checked every window, found the exits, then finally let herself collapse. Kasia nursed and slept. Luna held her daughter and tried not to think about Marcus kneeling in the courtyard, grieving for ghosts. Sleep came in fragments, dreams of fire and blood and oak branches breaking beneath her weight. She woke every hour, heart racing, hand reaching for the knife she'd tucked beneath her pillow. Claudius returned at sunset with bread, cheese, clean clothes, and information that made Luna's blood run cold. The council's calling for a vote tomorrow morning, he said, spreading food across the small table. They want to remove Marcus from succession, name him unfit to rule due to psychological damage from losing his mate and heir. Father's been spreading rumors all day that Marcus is unstable, that he's threatening violence against council members, that he's lost himself to grief. Has he? No. He's been completely silent. Hasn't left his chambers. Hasn't spoken to anyone. Which father is interpreting as proof of instability. Claudius's mouth twisted. If the vote passes, they'll exile him within the week. And once he's beyond pack protection, Father will send assassins to finish what the rogues started. Luna's hands curled into fists. What's your plan? Tomorrow night there's a council gathering. Private, exclusive, just the inner circle. Father will be there, along with the senators who orchestrated the attack. I can get you inside through the servants' entrance. If you can get evidence, a confession, testimony, anything concrete, we can expose them before the vote happens. And if I can't? Claudius met her eyes. Then Marcus dies, your daughter never gets to meet her father, and my father continues consolidating power until there's no one left to oppose him. Luna looked down at Kasia, sleeping peaceful in her arms. 3 days old. Still too small, too fragile, too dependent. Taking her into danger seemed impossible. Leaving her behind seemed worse. I need a way to contact Marcus, she said. Without the guards knowing. Claudius smiled. I thought you might say that. The message reached Marcus at midnight, delivered by a servant girl who didn't know what the sealed letter contained. Luna had written 3 words. Oak tree. Lone. She waited in the branches where she'd spent 4 hours the night before, Kasia secure against her chest, eyes scanning the courtyard for any sign of surveillance. Marcus emerged from the castle as the sky lightened from black to gray. He moved carefully, checking behind him, making sure he wasn't followed. When he reached the oak tree, Luna dropped a rope. Marcus looked up. Their eyes met. Luna watched disbelief, hope, and rage cycle across his face in rapid succession. He grabbed the rope and climbed with the desperate speed of someone chasing ghosts. She caught him when he reached her branch, pulled him into the shadows where they couldn't be seen from below. For a long moment they just stared at each other, confirming reality, making sure this wasn't another cruel dream. Then Marcus saw Kasia, his daughter, his heir, the child he'd thought was dead. She blinked up at him with those golden eyes. His eyes, and made a small sound that might have been recognition or might have been gas, but it shattered something in Marcus's chest either way. "They told me you were dead," he whispered, reaching out with shaking hands to touch Kasia's impossibly soft cheek. "Tiberius said the rogues killed you both. I believed him. I mourned you." He ordered the attack. Luna's voice was hard as stone. "Sent the rogues himself to eliminate us during the chaos. When we survived by hiding in this tree. He declared us dead anyway. Easier to erase us than admit his plan failed." Marcus's expression went cold. Dangerous. The look of an alpha deciding who to destroy first. "How many people know you're alive?" "Your son Claudius. No one else." "Claudius." Marcus tested the name like unfamiliar fruit, checking for poison. "He came to me last week. Warned me the council was planning something. I didn't believe him. Thought it was a trap." He pulled Luna and Kasia closer, careful of the rope that kept them secured to the branch. "What do you need from me?" "Tomorrow night, I'm infiltrating the private council gathering. Claudius can get me inside. I need you to create a distraction, something big enough to pull attention away from the servants' entrance but not so obvious that it looks planned. You're walking into a room full of people who want you dead. I've been doing that my whole life." Luna smiled without humor. "Besides, I'm already dead, remember? Ghosts can go anywhere." Marcus studied her face, looking for doubt, for fear, for any sign she understood how dangerous this was. Luna stared back, unflinching. She'd spent 4 hours in this tree holding their daughter while rogues hunted below. She'd listened to her mate mourn her death while she hid 15 feet above his head. Fear was a luxury she could no longer afford. "I'll create your distraction," Marcus said finally. "But if something goes wrong, if they discover you before you can escape, then Kasia goes to your sister in the Eastern Territories. Claudius has already arranged safe passage. She'll be raised away from pack politics, away from bloodline restrictions, away from all of this." Luna's voice didn't waver. "She'll be free. And you. I'll be dead. For real this time." Marcus kissed her then, hard and desperate, a goodbye disguised as affirmation. Kasia squirmed between them, protesting the sudden pressure, and they broke apart laughing despite everything. Despite the danger. Despite the impossible odds. "I love you," Marcus said, touching his forehead to Luna's. "I love you both. And when this is over, when Tiberius and his conspirators are exposed and executed, I'm going to change every law that kept us apart. I'm going to make sure our daughter inherits the throne she was born for. First we have to survive tomorrow night. We will." Marcus's certainty was absolute. "Because we're not prey anymore, Luna. We're the predators they forgot to kill." He climbed down as dawn broke fully across the courtyard. Luna watched him go, committing every detail to memory. The way he moved, the set of his shoulders, the glance back that said everything words couldn't. Then she descended with Kasia and returned to the safe house to prepare for war. Claudius arrived at noon with dark clothes, a servant's uniform, and a map of the council chamber that showed every entrance, every exit, every place guards might be stationed. He spread it across the table and began pointing out details. "The gathering starts at sunset. Father will arrive first, then the inner circle senators, 5 total. They'll meet in the private chamber here, behind the main hall. It's warded against eavesdropping, but there's a ventilation shaft that runs through the ceiling. If you can get into the shaft, you'll be able to hear everything they say." Luna studied the map. "The shaft is too narrow for me to fit through. Not with proper motivation." Claudius smiled grimly. "And you're smaller than you think. I measured it this morning. You'll fit." Barely. How do I get inside the shaft? There's an access panel in the servants' quarters. I'll make sure it's unlocked and the guards are distracted. You'll have a 10-minute window to get from the entrance to the panel to the shaft before the next patrol comes through. He met her eyes. This only works if the timing is perfect. If Marcus's distraction isn't big enough or doesn't last long enough, if you're seen entering the building, if someone checks the shaft, any of those things happen, you're dead. I understand. Do you? Claudius's voice hardened. Because my father will torture you before he kills you. He'll want to know how you survived, who helped you, what you know. And he's very good at making people talk. Luna thought of Kasia sleeping in the next room. Of Marcus mourning in his chambers. Of the 4 hours she'd spent in an oak tree, silent as death, while her world burned beneath her. I've survived worse, she said. The afternoon passed like slow poison. Luna nursed Kasia, memorized the map, checked her knives, ate food she couldn't taste. Claudius left to finalize preparations. The safe house felt smaller with every passing hour, walls closing in, air growing thick. At sunset, a knock came at the door. Luna grabbed her knife before opening it. Senator Cassius stood on the threshold. Luna's mother's old lover. The man who'd promised to help. He looked older than she remembered. Gray hair, lined face, eyes that had seen too much disappointment. Claudius sent me, he said without preamble, to watch your daughter while you infiltrate the council. Luna hesitated. She barely knew this man. Had only his word that he'd cared about her mother. But Kasia needed someone, and Claudius wouldn't have sent him without reason. If anything happens to her, then you can kill me yourself. Kasia stepped inside, glanced at the baby sleeping peacefully in her makeshift cradle. Something in his expression softened. She looks like Marcella, your mother. Same nose, same determined chin. He looked back at Luna. Go. Do what needs to be done. I'll guard her with my life. Luna kissed Kasia's forehead, whispered promises she might not be able to keep, then slipped into the darkening streets before doubt could stop her. The castle rose against the twilight sky, every window lit, every wall patrolled. Luna moved through shadows in her servant's uniform. Head down, hands occupied with carrying linens toward the side entrance. 2 guards checked her credentials, forged papers Claudius had provided. They waved her through without real scrutiny. Why would they look twice at a servant? The ventilation shaft access panel was where Claudius had promised, hidden behind stacked crates in a storage room. Luna squeezed herself through an opening barely wide enough for her shoulders, then began crawling through darkness toward the private chamber. The shaft was narrower than she'd anticipated. Metal walls pressed against her sides. Dust filled her lungs. She moved inch by inch, following the map burned into her memory, counting ventilation grates as she passed them. 1, 2, 3. The 4th grate opened into the private chamber. Luna positioned herself carefully, peering through slats at the room below. Consul Tiberius sat at the head of a long table, flanked by 5 senators, the inner circle. Claudius wasn't among them. He'd positioned himself outside the conspiracy, playing the dutiful son while secretly working against his father. Marcus Aurelius has become a problem, Tiberius began without preamble. The vote tomorrow will remove him from succession, but that's not enough. He's popular with the warriors, beloved by the common pack members. Even diminished, he poses a threat. Senator Marcus, no relation to Marcus Aurelius, just unfortunate naming, leaned forward. You orchestrated the rogue attack to eliminate his mate and heir. That didn't work. What's your next move? Actually, it worked perfectly. Tiberius smiled, that poisoned smile Luna had seen in the courtyard. Luna Octavia and her child are dead. Burned to ash. Marcus believes this. The pack believes this. And a wolf who's lost everything makes very predictable decisions. Such as revenge. Marcus will come for me eventually. He'll make accusations, demand investigations, probably attempt to kill me directly. And when he does, I'll have justification to execute him for treason against the council. Problem solved. Another senator spoke up. What if he doesn't? What if grief keeps him subdued? Then we'll help him along. Tiberius gestured to a guard standing by the door. Bring in the bait. The guard left, returned moments later dragging a woman in chains. She was young, barely 20, with Luna's dark hair and similar features. Close enough to pass for family in dim light. Who is this? Senator Marcus asked. Luna's cousin. Found her in the lower city yesterday. Marcus doesn't know she exists. Luna kept that information private. But DNA doesn't lie. She's bloodline. Tiberius stood, walked around the table to study the trembling woman. Tomorrow, after the vote, we'll present her to Marcus. Tell him she survived the attack. Watch him bond with her, protect her, care for her as a link to his dead mate. Then, in a month or so, we'll discover she's been feeding information to enemy packs. Treason. Marcus will have to execute her himself according to pack law, or be executed for harboring a traitor. That's... Senator Marcus searched for words. Elaborate. That's politics. Tiberius returned to his seat. Break a wolf's heart once, he mourns. Break it twice, he shatters. And a shattered wolf is easy to eliminate. Luna's hands curled into fists. The ventilation grate creaked under the pressure. She froze, breath held, praying the sound wouldn't be noticed. Below, Senator Quintus glanced up. Did you hear something? The castle's settling, Tiberius said dismissively. It's ancient. Everything creaks. Nevertheless, Quintus stood, walked directly beneath Luna's hiding spot. The ward should prevent any eavesdropping, but it wouldn't hurt to check the shafts. Luna's heart hammered against her ribs. She couldn't retreat. The shaft was too narrow to turn around in. Couldn't stay. Quintus would see her the moment he opened the grate. She had seconds to decide. She chose violence. The grate crashed down as Luna dropped through the opening, landing on Quintus and driving him to the floor. Her knife found his throat before the other senators could react. Blood sprayed across marble tile. Luna rolled, came up running toward the door, toward escape, toward any chance of survival. Guards poured into the room. 6, 8, 12 of them. Too many. Luna killed 2 before they pinned her against the wall, tore the knife from her hand, forced her to her knees. Tiberius stood slowly, face expressionless. He crossed the room, grabbed Luna's hair, yanked her head back to study her face. Remarkable, he said softly. Luna Octavia. Dead for 3 days, yet here you are. I'm impressed by your survival skills, even as I'm annoyed by the complications. Marcus knows I'm alive, Luna said through clenched teeth. Your plan is already ruined. Marcus knows nothing except that his mate climbed out of an oak tree to tell him comforting lies. By the time he learns you've been captured, you'll be ash and memory. Tiberius released her hair, stepped back. But first I have questions. Who helped you? How did you escape the rogues? What have you told Marcus about council involvement? Luna smiled. Go to hell. Tiberius nodded to his guards. Take her to the holding cells. I'll begin interrogation in an hour. Make sure she stays alive until then. I want her conscious for what comes next. They dragged Luna from the chamber. She fought every step, screaming Marcus's name, hoping he'd hear, hoping the distraction he'd promised was enough. But the castle was massive, and her voice was just one more sound in the chaos of evening activity. The holding cells were beneath the council chambers, carved from bedrock and sealed with iron doors. They threw Luna into the smallest cell, chained her wrists to the wall, left her in darkness that was absolute and suffocating. She had no way to measure time. Could have been minutes or hours before footsteps echoed in the corridor. A door opened. Torchlight flooded in, painful after so much darkness. Tiberius entered alone. Confident. Why wouldn't he be? Luna was chained, unarmed, alone. Let's begin, he said, pulling a knife from his belt. Not to kill, to persuade. Tell me who helped you escape, and I'll make your death quick." Luna said nothing. The first cut opened her shoulder. Shallow, precise, designed to hurt without disabling. Luna bit her lip until she tasted blood, refused to scream, refused to give him satisfaction. "Your daughter is still alive, isn't she?" Tiberius asked conversationally, making another cut along Luna's ribs. "You wouldn't have risked infiltrating the council if she was dead. Where is she? Who's protecting her?" Still Luna remained silent. "Marcus will break when he learns I have you," Tiberius continued. "He'll do something foolish, try to rescue you, and give me all the justification I need to execute him for treason. Your silence protects no one." "My silence," Luna said finally, voice rough as gravel, "protects my daughter from becoming you, from learning that power matters more than people, that politics justifies cruelty." She met his eyes. "You've already lost. You just don't know it yet." Bold words from a woman in chains. Not chains. Bait. Tiberius's expression flickered. Confusion, suspicion. Before he could respond, an explosion rocked the corridor outside. Stone dust rained from the ceiling. Guards shouted. More explosions, closer now. Systematic destruction working its way toward the holding cells. Marcus's distraction had arrived. Tiberius ran for the door. Luna yanked against her chains, testing them, finding no weakness. She was trapped. If Marcus didn't reach her in time, if the explosions brought the ceiling down first. The cell door exploded inward. "Not Marcus. Claudius. Did you really think I'd only plan one rescue?" he said, crossing to Luna and pulling lockpicks from his belt. "Father's predictable. I knew he'd capture you eventually. Had contingencies ready." Chains fell away. Luna's wrists were bloody, nearly useless. Claudius half carried her into the corridor where smoke and chaos painted everything in shades of hell. Marcus. Creating havoc in the main hall. Drawing every guard in the castle while I extract you. Claudius grinned through the smoke. "We coordinated." They emerged into a corridor filled with pack warriors. Not council guards, but Marcus's personal guard. Wolves loyal to the throne rather than the consul. They'd chosen sides. Chosen their alpha over politics. Marcus stood at the center of the chaos, covered in blood, surrounded by bodies. When he saw Luna, everything else disappeared. He crossed the space between them in 3 strides, caught her as her legs gave out. "Kasia," she gasped. "Safe." Cassius got her out of the city the moment the explosions started. "She's already halfway to my sister's territory." Relief hit Luna like physical force. Her daughter was safe. That was all that mattered. Everything else could burn. "Tiberius escaped," Claudius reported, joining them. "Probably heading for the council chambers to rally support. Then we finish this." Marcus's voice was pure command. Pure alpha. He looked at his warriors. "No one who orchestrated the attack on my mate and daughter survives tonight. Council members, senators, guards. Anyone who participated, anyone who knew and said nothing. We burn out this rot at the root." The warriors roared approval. They'd been waiting for this. For permission to tear down a system that had grown corrupt over decades. Luna saw it in their faces. Righteous fury, long-suppressed rage. The savage joy of wolves finally released from political chains. They swept through the castle like wildfire. Council members tried to flee. Marcus's warriors cut them down. Guards tried to surrender. Luna killed them herself. Knife moving with surgical precision learned through years of surviving impossible situations. They found Tiberius in the council chamber, surrounded by his inner circle, making his last stand. He saw Marcus enter and smiled that poisoned smile one final time. "Kill me, and you prove I was right about you. Prove you're too dangerous, too unstable, too controlled by emotion to lead this pack." Marcus stopped 3 paces away. "I'm not going to kill you. That would be mercy." He gestured. Warriors stepped forward, grabbed Tiberius, tore him away from his guards. They didn't kill him. Just stripped him of rank, of power, of everything that made him consul. Then they threw him in the holding cells he'd designed for prisoners. Left him chained to the same wall where Luna had bled an hour earlier. "You'll stay there," Marcus said from the doorway, "until the full pack convenes to decide your fate. They'll hear testimony about the orchestrated attack, about the innocent wolves who died, about the conspiracy to eliminate bloodlines you deemed unfit." He paused. "And then they'll probably tear you apart. But that's their choice to make, not mine." He closed the door on Tiberius's screams. The purge continued through the night. By dawn, 17 senators and 43 guards were dead or imprisoned. The council chamber burned. Marcus's warriors set the fire personally, cleansing corruption with flame. Luna stood in the courtyard as sunrise painted the world in shades of gold and ash. Her body ached. Her wrists were bandaged. Exhaustion pulled at her like gravity. But she was alive. Cassia was safe. And Marcus stood beside her, whole and victorious. "It's not over," she said quietly. "There will be resistance. Wolves who supported Tiberius, who believe in the old bloodline restrictions. We've torn down one system, but we haven't built the new one yet." "No," Marcus agreed. "But we've bought ourselves time. And time is all we need." He pulled her close, careful of her injuries. "The pack convenes in 3 days. I'll address them formally, present evidence of the conspiracy, call for reform. And I'll introduce them to my daughter, Heir, the child who survived because her mother was braver than any warrior, clever enough to hide in an oak tree while the world burned beneath her. Will they accept her?" "They will. 'Cause I'm going to change pack law. End the bloodline restrictions. Open succession to merit instead of ancestry." Marcus's voice held absolute certainty. "And anyone who opposes that change can challenge me directly. I welcome the fight." Luna believed him. Believed in him. In them. In the future they'd build from the wreckage of the old guard. "What happens to your cousin?" she asked, remembering the woman in chains. "The one Tiberius planned to use as bait." "Already freed. Already compensated. I offered her a position in court if she wants it. She's family after all." "Your family." "Our family." Marcus smiled. She declined. Said politics seemed complicated. "Can't imagine why." They stood together in the courtyard as pack members emerged to see the aftermath. Saw the burned council chamber. The bodies being removed. Their alpha standing bloodied but unbroken beside his supposedly dead mate. The whispers started immediately. Luna heard them rippling through the crowd. She survived. The Luna survived. The child survived. The consul lied. The attack was orchestrated. Everything is changing. Everything has changed. Claudius found them an hour later. He looked exhausted, triumphant, and terrified in equal measure. "Father's guard just tried to break him out of the cells. We stopped them but barely. The resistance you predicted is already organizing." "Let them organize," Marcus said. "Transparency is part of the new order. Let our opponents see us coming. Let them prepare their best arguments. We'll beat them anyway." "You sound confident." "I am. Because I have something they don't." Marcus looked at Luna. "I have a reason to fight that goes beyond power or politics. They can't beat that. They can only surrender or die trying." The pack convened on the 3rd day. Thousands of wolves gathered in the great hall, in the courtyards, in every available space. Marcus stood on the main platform, Luna beside him, and told the truth. All of it. The orchestrated attack. Tiberius's conspiracy. The bloodline restrictions that had weakened the pack by limiting leadership to narrow genetics. He presented evidence. Testimonies from captured guards, financial records showing payments to the rogues, documents outlining the plan to eliminate Luna and Cassia. Then he presented his daughter. Cassia was 6 days old. Still impossibly small, still completely dependent. But when Marcus held her up for the pack to see, when those golden eyes caught the light and she made a small sound that echoed through absolute silence, something shifted. The old guard saw a child. The warriors saw their alpha's heir. The younger wolves saw possibility, a future where bloodline didn't dictate destiny. "This is Cassia Aurelia," Marcus announced, voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "My daughter, Heir, born of a forbidden bloodline according to laws written 3 centuries ago by wolves who feared change more than stagnation. I propose we end those laws. Open leadership to merit. Let the strongest lead, regardless of ancestry." The roar of approval nearly brought down the ceiling. Not unanimous. Luna saw pockets of resistance, wolves whose faces showed anger or fear or stubborn loyalty to tradition. But the majority held their support. The majority wanted change. The majority had been waiting for someone brave enough or crazy enough to propose it. The vote took 3 hours. Heated debates, passionate arguments, wolves challenging Marcus's authority, questioning his motives, warning of chaos if bloodline restrictions ended. Marcus answered every challenge personally, explained his reasoning, defended his daughter's right to inherit. And when words failed, when opposition seemed immovable, he issued an ancient challenge: trial by combat. Any wolf who opposed the reform could face him directly. Let strength decide the debate. 17 wolves accepted the challenge. Marcus fought them one after another in the courtyard, in front of the entire pack. He didn't kill them, just defeated them, systematically and decisively, proving his right to lead through the only language old guard wolves respected. By sunset the vote passed. Bloodline restrictions ended. Succession opened to merit. Cassia Aurelia became heir to the throne despite her forbidden heritage. Tiberius was executed at dawn the next day. The pack chose the method: old laws, old traditions. They tied him to the oak tree where Luna had hidden with her daughter, and let the warriors he'd betrayed take turns. Luna didn't watch. Didn't need to. His screams told her everything. Marcus found her in their chambers afterward. They'd reclaimed the tower room where this had all started, where the royal decree had arrived at midnight and shattered their world. Now sunlight poured through the windows, warm and golden, painting everything in possibility. "It's done," he said simply. "It's just beginning," Luna corrected. "Changing laws is easy compared to changing hearts. There are wolves who will resist this for years. Decades. We've made enemies who'll wait for any opportunity to strike back. Then we'll be ready when they strike." Marcus pulled her close, mindful of injuries still healing. "Because we're survivors, Luna. We hung from an oak tree for 4 hours while rogues hunted below. We infiltrated enemy territory, exposed conspiracies, burned down corruption. There's nothing we can't survive together." Cassia woke crying in the next room. Luna went to her, lifted her daughter, felt that familiar weight settle against her chest. The weight that had kept her silent in the tree. The weight that had made her brave enough to drop into a room full of enemies. The weight of everything worth protecting. "Tell her the story," Marcus said, joining them. "When she's old enough. Tell her about the night rogues stormed the castle and her mother saved her by climbing into the sky." "I'll tell her," Luna promised. "But I'll also tell her the rest. About the father who fought for her before she could even speak. About the pack that chose change over tradition. About the consul who tried to erase her from existence, and the warriors who chose to let her live instead." She looked out the window at the courtyard below. At the oak tree standing ancient and unbroken. At the pack members moving through morning routines, rebuilding what had been destroyed, creating something new from the ashes of the old order. "I'll tell her she comes from wolves who refused to die quietly," Luna said. "Who hung from oak branches and survived. Who burned down corruption and built something better. Who loved her enough to change the world." Cassia made a small sound, agreement or gas, impossible to tell. But Luna chose to believe it was agreement. Chose to believe her daughter understood, somehow, that survival wasn't just about living. It was about refusing to let the world stay broken. About climbing into oak trees when necessary and burning down councils when required. About being brave enough to hang from branches for 4 hours in darkness, trusting that dawn would eventually come. The world outside continued changing. Messengers arrived from eastern territories, from northern packs, from wolves who'd heard about the bloodline reforms and wanted to negotiate trade agreements, political alliances, new connections. The isolation that had protected tradition for centuries was ending. The pack was opening up, reaching out, becoming part of something larger. Luna watched it all with Kasha in her arms and Marcus at her side, and she thought about oak trees. About how they grew strong by sinking roots deep and reaching branches high. About how they survived storms by bending instead of breaking. About how their leaves provided shelter for smaller creatures who needed protection. They'd survived by becoming an oak tree, strong enough to hold weight, flexible enough to sway with wind, deep-rooted enough to never fall. And now they'd build a forest. One tree at a time. One law reformed at a time. One wolf convinced at a time that bloodline mattered less than courage, less than honor, less than the determination to protect what needed protecting. It would take years, decades, generations. But Luna had 4 hours in an oak tree to prepare her for patient work. 4 hours of holding still while the world burned beneath her. 4 hours of trusting that survival was possible if she just refused to let go. She hadn't let go then. She wouldn't let go now. "Come on," Marcus said, breaking her reverie. "The Eastern delegation arrives at noon. We should prepare." Luna kissed Kasha's head, breathed in that new soul scent one more time, then handed her daughter to the nursemaid who waited nearby. The same nursemaid who'd helped smuggle messages, who'd supported the reforms, who'd chosen sides when it mattered. "Keep her safe," Luna said. "Always," the nursemaid promised. Luna and Marcus walked through corridors that had seen blood and betrayal, death and transformation. Their footsteps echoed on marble floors stained with history. Pack members they passed bowed, not from fear but from respect, from recognition that their leaders had survived hell and come back stronger. The Eastern delegation wanted trade agreements. The Northern packs wanted military alliances. The Western territories wanted assurances that bloodline reforms wouldn't destabilize the entire region. All of it was politics. All of it required careful negotiation, but Luna found herself almost enjoying it. Because politics without corruption was just problem-solving. Just wolves trying to build something better than what they'd inherited. The meetings lasted through the afternoon. Luna let Marcus handle most of the talking. He was alpha, it was his right and responsibility. But she interjected when necessary, offered perspectives he might miss, asked questions that revealed hidden concerns. The Eastern delegation's leader, Alpha Maximus, studied her with open curiosity. "You're the wolf who survived the rogue attack by hiding in a tree for 4 hours. I'm the wolf who refused to die quietly," Luna corrected. Maximus smiled. "Good. We need more wolves like that. Wolves who adapt instead of surrendering. Wolves who—" He gestured at the reformed council chamber. The new guards who wore loyalty on their faces instead of calculation. Who burn down what needs burning. "Careful," Marcus said, but his tone held humor instead of threat. "My mate takes that as encouragement." As she should. Maximus signed the trade agreement without further negotiation. As should we all. The other delegations followed suit. By evening, Luna and Marcus had secured alliances with 3 territories, trade agreements with 5 packs, and military support from the northern coalitions. Political capital built from ashes and blood. They returned to their chambers at midnight, exhausted but satisfied. Kasha slept peacefully in her cradle. The nursemaid had left food, bread, cheese, wine. They ate in comfortable silence, too tired for words. "What happens next?" Luna asked finally. "We govern. We rebuild. We raise our daughter." Marcus poured wine into 2 cups, handed one to Luna. "We prove that change doesn't mean chaos. That opening succession to merit makes us stronger, not weaker. And when the old guard tries again, because they will. Tiberius had allies we haven't identified yet. Senators who escaped purges. Guards who fled before we could arrest them. Then we survive. Again." Marcus raised his cup. To oak trees. To wolves who refuse to die quietly. To mothers who hang from branches for 4 hours with newborns against their chests and somehow, impossibly, live to tell about it. Luna touched her cup to his. To fathers who fight council conspiracies for daughters they've barely met. To alphas who burn down corruption even when it means burning down everything they've known. They drank. The wine was good, rich and complex, but Luna barely tasted it. She was thinking about Kasia. About the world they were building for her. About the challenges that would come. Wolves who opposed reforms. Packs who saw change as weakness. Assassins who'd target the child born of forbidden bloodline. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said quietly. "I spent my whole life being afraid. Afraid of pack law, afraid of bloodline restrictions, afraid my daughter would inherit my mother's fate. But 4 hours in an oak tree taught me something." "What?" "Fear is just another branch to hold on to. Keeps you alive if you use it right. But if you let it control you, if you freeze instead of adapting." Luna set down her cup. "Then you fall." Marcus pulled her close. They stood together in the tower room where this had all begun, where royal decrees had arrived at midnight and shattered everything, where Luna had made the choice to climb out a window instead of surrender. "No more climbing out windows," he said. "No more listening to council members who try to erase my daughter from existence," Luna countered. "Deal." They sealed it with a kiss, not desperate like before, not goodbye disguised as affirmation. Just two wolves who'd survived impossible odds and chosen to build something better from the wreckage. Kasia woke crying. Luna went to her, lifted her, began the familiar routine of nursing while Marcus watched from the doorway. This was their new normal. Politics during the day, family at night. Reforming packs between feeding schedules. Changing the world one small decision at a time. "She's going to be formidable," Marcus said, watching Kasia nurse with single-minded intensity. Born during a rogue attack, survived by hiding in an oak tree. Saved by her mother's courage and her father's fury. "That's a hell of an origin story." "It's not her origin story," Luna said softly. "It's her survival story. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Origin stories explain where you come from. Survival stories explain who you become." Luna looked down at her daughter, at those golden eyes that held her mother's gaze with complete trust. "Kasia doesn't come from forbidden bloodlines or pack law violations or political conspiracies. She comes from wolves who refused to let the world break them. Who chose courage over compliance. Who climbed into trees when necessary and burned down corruption when required." Marcus crossed the room, knelt beside them. "Then we make sure she knows that story. Make sure she understands she doesn't have to be defined by the circumstances of her birth. That she gets to write her own narrative. We will." Luna touched her forehead to his. "We'll teach her about oak trees and survival. About when to hold still and when to fight. About the difference between patience and surrender." She smiled. "And if anyone tries to tell her she's unfit for leadership because of her bloodline, she'll have a hell of a response ready." "What response?" "That her mother survived 4 hours in an oak tree while rogues hunted below. That her father fought an entire council conspiracy and won. That her parents changed pack law and burned down corruption because they refused to let tradition dictate their daughter's worth." Luna's voice hardened with protective fury. "And that anyone who challenges her inheritance better be prepared for wolves who've already proven they'll tear down the world to protect their family." Marcus laughed, a sound of pure joy that filled the tower room and scattered the last shadows of grief and fear. "Our daughter is going to be absolutely terrifying." "Good," Luna said. "The world needs more terrifying women. More wolves who refuse to die quietly. More leaders who learned survival from mothers who hung from oak trees and lived to change everything." Outside, dawn approached. Luna could see it through the window, the same window she'd climbed through 6 days ago, rope in hand, newborn against her chest, terror and determination warring in her heart. The courtyard below was peaceful now. The oak tree stood unchanging, patient, strong. Kasia finished nursing and fell asleep. Luna held her for a few minutes longer, unwilling to put her down, needing that weight and warmth as confirmation of survival. Then finally she laid her daughter in the cradle Marcus had carved himself, wood from an oak tree that had fallen during a storm 3 decades ago, preserved and transformed into something new. What happens when she asks about that night? Marcus said quietly. When she wants to know details about the rogues, about Tiberius, about how close we came to losing everything. We tell her the truth. Luna's answer was immediate. All of it. The fear and the fury and the 4 hours of holding still while our world burned. We tell her about the choices we made and the prices we paid and the wolves who died so she could live. We pause. And then we tell her she has a choice too. She can let that night define her, or she can let it refine her. Let it sharpen her into something stronger and braver and more determined than any wolf who came before. You're assuming she'll choose strength over bitterness. I'm not assuming anything. Luna smiled. I'm trusting in oak tree lessons. In the wisdom of wolves who survive by adapting instead of surrendering. She comes from survivors. She'll figure it out. Marcus wrapped his arms around her, and they stood together in the tower room as dawn broke fully over the castle, over the pack, over the world they'd torn apart and were slowly rebuilding. Everything was different now. Everything had changed. But the oak tree still stood in the courtyard, still reached branches toward the sky, still offered shelter to wolves who needed height and safety and a place to hide from rogues who hunted below. And Luna knew with absolute certainty that when Kasia was older, when she faced her own impossible odds, her own midnight decrees, her own moments of desperate choice, she'd remember the story of the oak tree. Remember that sometimes survival means climbing into the sky. Sometimes it means holding still while the world burns. Sometimes it means 4 hours of silent terror in the darkness, trusting that dawn will eventually come. And sometimes survival means refusing to let go, even when every muscle screams and every instinct says fall. Sometimes it means clinging to branches and babies and hope until the hunting pack moves on, until the danger passes. Until you can climb down into a world that's been changed forever by your determination to simply stay alive. The story of Luna and Kasia and the oak tree would become pack legend. Would be told to cubs who asked about bloodline reforms and the day everything changed. Would be whispered by wolves who needed reminding that adaptation beats tradition, that courage outweighs ancestry, that forbidden bloodlines produce the strongest leaders because they're refined by survival instead of weakened by privilege. But that was future history. Tomorrow's legend. Today was just Luna and Marcus and Kasia in a tower room at dawn, exhausted and victorious.